Yes,
Right.
Yes.
So, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So, what is that we have discussed in the previous session about the HIPAA
I
rules
made
and
something.
regulations, like HIPAA, uh, what are HIPAA rules and regulations and all that. So, we have discussed in the previous session. And today I'm going to discuss about the life cycle claim process followed by the kind of codes, what is that we are using for processing the claims, because claim processing is something essentially important to start and understand it. In reference to that, so today I'm going to explain you about what is the life cycle of a claim and how usually it performs. So followed by this, Jira is what I'm going to start after that. Okay, so this is what the life cycle claim of a life cycle of an claim processing. What is that happens between healthcare provider to an insurance company? Please mute yourself. I think someone was unmuted. Please mute yourself. So there are 9 different steps you see in life cycle claim. So wherein the first step majorly focuses on the processing part, because the steps what is that I'm mentioning here, this is irrespective of the type of claim we were performing. Uh, Either it may be in uh, Medicare or it may be in Medicaid, all that stuff. So the process remains constant and same. But usually the whole process of claim will take between 60 to 90 days of time. Please mute yourself. 60 to 90 days of time will be taken for the whole life cycle claim process. So as you know, like when an individual has approached an healthcare provider for a treatment, there must be valid insurance, because unless once the valid insurance, once the treatment is done. So what is that happens is what we were discussing now, right? So once the treatment is done, so they'll be preparing a case sheet. So case sheet consists of all the detailed information of the patient status, from which status the patient has reached to the hospital, from there onwards, whatever the primary medication given by the hospital, from there to discharge, the total discharge summary we can consider it as. So the complete summary report will be prepared by the healthcare providers, and that discharge summary has to be given the breakup, especially breakup has to be given. Means what treatment was given, what is the cost incurred for the treatment, including medicines or the procedures, whatever the procedures they followed. So all that information they have to cover under the life cycle of a claim. Uh, they have to explain in the life cycle of a claim. So this is all happens through the courts, as I mentioned you. So this process will be taken on 9 different steps. So the first step we call it as general office processing. That was the first thing. The general office processing is the first point. I'll be texting on the chat box. If you couldn't see the screen properly, I'm texting on the chat box. No need to worry. So general office processing is what the first one. Texting on the chat box. Okay. Or else I'll text it on the Word document. Just a moment. Right. So, claim processing life cycle steps are as follows. Okay, I'm typing here so that you could understand. So the first one will be called as general office processing, the first step. This is the first step here. The second step will be coding department processing. I'll write down the points. Later I will explain everything. Okay. Second was coding department processing. Third was IT department processing. The fourth was follow-up detail processing. Follow-up detail. Follow-up department processing. Next, insurance companies. Followed by posting department. Next, electronic deposits. Electronic deposits. Followed by that, patient statements. Next, collections. So these are the different steps which normally we follow when we are working on life cycle of a claim. So as I stated, this is irrespective of the type of claim which it belongs to, but make sure we need to have the detailed information about the patient details must be ensured here. Now, what is that I'm doing? The first one we call it as general office processing, where the first point comes under general office processing. In this general office processing, we must be understood or we need to understand the demographics first, right? So what are the demographics? Because the process of initiation will be happens through demographics. Based upon the demographics, it will be sorted out and the information will be entered on the first level. This is what generally the first thing what happens in the beginning, because there are some processings which normally this will be categorized in four different things. One is about general office processing. Second is coding department. Third, IT, followed by follow-up, right? So these are the four first steps we follow. So the first step, general office processing, is what we do. In this general office processing, we focus mainly on the demographics. So based on the demographics, because there are a lot of claims which normally receives by this claim systems, because clearing houses will be there, like different claims will be received to the system on regular intervals, because this is not something an manual intervention we follow, right? So whatever the process we follow, so this is an auto intervention which application or which systems will perform. not by the individual on its own. But requirements, yes, requirements being a BA, you are taken. But when it comes to the process of the claims, everything happens through the clearing houses, claim settlement, everything. So there are systems we use, like something like Faceit, QNext. All these applications will be used to do that. So the first one is general office processing, where based upon the demographics, the information will be sorted, and whatever the required details to be entered will be taken into an account on the first level. Whereas when it comes to the second, coding department processing. So where we have to identify the type of services, whatever was mentioned on the detailed information there, we have to classify this based upon the code numbers, what was already initiated, because there are some ICD codes, as I told you. So ICD codes, like different EDA through EDA transactions, this ICD code something like 835, 837. So for every code, there is, for example, a healthcare provider has sent a request to the insurance company. The kind of code number, what is that are we using is different. At the same time, whatever you are receiving from an insurance company in terms of the receivable, the code number will be as separate. So for every process, there are some codes which generally we uses, right? So that is what generally we do here. So coding department here will identify the kind of codes whatever you're uh, using for each transactions, where for that they have to write medical coding. This is where generally medical coding comes into picture. So for the kind of type of services, the kind of type of insurance claim, followed by the kind of type of insurance that person handles, there are medical coding people who write code for the process, because for every process there is a code which has to be generated by the medical coding team. So again, because there is a variation, because the process of claims remains same and constant, in reference to the type of insurance plans which people have is different. Because if you remember, when you talk about Medicare, I have given 4 different parts: A, B, C, D. Whatever the services falls under A won't be appeared on B. Whatever is appeared on B won't be there in C, followed by D. So there are changes which normally happens, which normally takes place. One must be understandable, right? So one should understand all that. So that is what generally we call it as this code, medical coding part, right? So medical code processing and all, everything is something relating to that stuff. So based upon the type of claim or type of insurance plan that individual has, followed by the kind of transactions, whatever the kind of procedure, whatever an healthcare organization has followed. So there is a medical code which has to be generated by the medical coding team in the second level. Whereas once the medical coding done, the next, this step will be forwarded towards IT department, where this IT department will process this electronics claims and all, everything for submission purposes. And in the submission purposes, they have to see whatever the reports, like pre-billing reports, followed by like a kind of any additional information uh, in reference to the discharge, right? So because we need to provide discharge summaries, all that, right? So all these things, case sheet, discharge summaries, all these things has to be given. So IT department processing will convert those codes to the transactions, means whatever the codes were using by the medical coding people and whatever the code was generated by them. So that will be processed into IT departments. IT departments will process this, and the claim submissions and all everything will be taken place on the third phase. This happens, the complete IT systems, means claim systems, processes, everything will be taken place on the third phase, IT department processing. So followed by this, the fourth step, where it will be converted into follow-up department processing, where we have to follow up, is there any kind of due accounts which are balanced here, or is there anything to be added into the existing ones, is what they have to see here. So these are the four basic steps which are completely common for any life cycle of a claim, where general information will be gathered based on the demographics is the first step. Second, for that, whatever the possible and necessary code to be written for a particular transaction will be written by the people here. Third, IT department processing, where this electronic claims and all submissions, everything will be mentioned under the third level. Whereas when it comes to the fourth level, like follow-up department processing, whatever follow-up do we require to do, all these things comes under that follow-up department processing. From there, insurance companies, the information will be received to an insurance organization, where usually there is some adjudication process which normally an insurance companies follow. Adjudication means, is there any kind of queries do they have and all everything. So those queries will be sent again to the healthcare organizations, where they have to provide necessary information about that particular case. Because when we have submitted the documents, there is some procedure, or there are some standard documents have to be provided. So that standard document, something like discharge summary, majorly, and the cost, the total cost of the total cost incurred for the total treatment, right? So that is the second thing. Third thing about the breakup has to be given, right? So breakup summary of the cost. How much happened? So that breakup summary has to be given by the healthcare provider to an insurance company, right? So like for a procedure, right? For example, there is a medical procedure or blood test or something like must happen, right? So what is the procedure they follow, and what is the cost involved in it? So it's not only procedure, maybe the diagnosis, right? So say there is some diagnosis is done by an healthcare provider to a patient. So what procedure they have followed, and what is the cost involved in it. At the same time, if there is any kind of surgery happened, like pre and post surgery processes, what they follow. If it is surgery related stuff I'm talking about. So this is an add-on additional thing. Any surgery related, all that. So that also will be added into the existing ones. That is one more thing which have to be focused more of. Followed by the surgery, all that. The next one will be like whatever the treatment they have given. For that, what kind of medicines in external as well as internal medication, what is that given by to the patient. So those details should also be given as a breakup to an insurance organization. So all these documents has to be submitted. Earlier, we used to have paper claims, as I mentioned in the beginning. Now all these were encrypted format, Means there is the detailed information which insurance company expects, the way we have to provide all these breakup statements and all everything to the insurance organizations. So once we have provided that, normally to do all these process, whatever the process I may be talking about, these processes will be taken a minimum of week time to, and normally somewhere around 1.5 months. So that whole process to initiate with, right? So this is because the complete life cycle process will be varying from 60 days to 90 days, like a month, 2 months to 3 months time will be taken for the whole process to be completed. Means including receive like collections, clearing houses, through clearing house, whatever the settlement happens and all everything, including that, it will be taken 60 to 90 days of time. So the insurance companies will receive the claim request from the health insurance organizations. Whereas once they have received that, they have to see, they have to ensure, is there any process which is involved in it, or is there any process which in healthcare provider has missed out anything. So this is all comes under claims adjudication, because there is an adjudication statement which will be sent to the healthcare providers if there are missed any kind of information or the documents, if so. So if so, right? So claim adjudication is a common procedure, because whenever we submit the claim, it will not be approved, right? So there are cross verifications which will be taken place by the insurance organization right from the date of uh, date of entry, right? So date of entry when the patient has joined in the hospital, right from there to delivery, whatever the procedures they have followed, whatever the code, whatever the treatment was given to the patient. If it is operation, again, pre and post operational procedures, activities, all this information has to be given. So this information has to be verified, will be verified by an insurance organizations, where they need to see whether is there any additional information required. So that will be taking into an account under the claims adjudication on the fifth point. So once the claim adjudication done, the next was posting department, where we post all the payments to the accounts departments and all everything for balance transfers, if anything will be occurred here, because posting department will process all the payments, accounts, what are the balance transfers and all everything happens and will be taken care of by the posting department, subject to terms and conditions as I mentioned. So once the adjudication process done, once the valid information was provided by the healthcare provider, they have to make sure that all the information will be given here. If so, next posting department process in reference to the payments and all everything will be taken place. So once it was done, the next is electronic deposits, where this is all we call it as clearing, because this is not happens through any other means. Usually this happens through an electronic format. So like deposits and all everything will be sent through the clearing houses and all everything, wherein these information will be updated, including the statements of the patients, whatever the breakups we have given follow to that particular case, whatever were dealing by the insurance companies, if the claim adjudication process was satisfied, right? So if it was not satisfied, again from the fifth point, again it go back to the healthcare providers, where they have to provide necessary information for that. So this is the procedure which is that we follow. Once it is done, next posting department where we posting the department claims, all that stuff. From there, through electronic deposit, through electronic deposits, whatever the transactions through clearing houses and all everything. The patient statements will be attached to the existing process, whatever we have finalized in the claim life cycle. That will be sent to the collection department on the final note. So the whole process of life cycle of a claim, what is that we have discussed so far? All these will be taken varying from 60 to 90 days of time. So to complete the whole claim process, usually right from uh, right from the submission of the claim request, I am talking about. Right from the submission of the claim request. Please mute yourself. Please mute yourself. There is a disturbance here. Please. Right. So there is a claim processing which right from the see the procedure, what is that I have explained you in reference to the life cycle claim is the one will be taken once the treatment done, once the records were submitted from the date of records based upon the demographics, whatever the record submitted, entered, right? So from there onwards, it will be taken 60 to 90 days of time for the whole life cycle claim. That is, please mute yourself. Please mute yourself.
Neeraj, can you see if you can mute it?
Muted? Okay, right. Right. So the whole process, whatever the process have we discussed so far, this process steps, whatever I have explained so far, this process steps will be initiated right from the date of start, right? So right from the date of start, as I have stated and mentioned you, right from date of start, once the demographics was finalized. So based on the demographics, whatever the sorting out the information which is entered, from there to collections, the process will be. It is not calculated based on, it will not be calculated right from the treatment point of view. So once the treatment done, once person was discharged from the hospital, and whatever the process or initiation, from there onwards, it will be taken the 9 steps. One is about general office processing, second is coding department processing, third IT department processing will be initiated, followed by this follow-up will be initiated here. Next, if there is any queries, insurance companies will be adjudicated on this. Next, it will be sent to the posting department. From there, through electronic deposits and all everything, including patient statements through clearing houses, collections will be sent, request the claim closures and all everything will be sent to the healthcare providers who has submitted the claims and all everything on the first day itself. So this is the whole life cycle process of a claim which normally we follow. So for that, there are some code numbers which I mentioned earlier. There are few code numbers which, being a business analysis, which we have to remember. So there are different codes. What is that we need to know for sure. So the code numbers are as follows. So the process I am explaining now, because life cycle of a claim was explained to you so far. And now what is that I'm going to explain you about the process of the steps, what are that involved in this. So these are the steps and the processes which normally involved here. Where in this involvement, there are three people who are involved in this. One is provider, second insurance or a payer, insurance and payers. Third is a sponsor, right? So these are the three people who are involved in the whole claim process, because the transactions or the activities, whatever we perform. So all these will be performed and rotated within these three people. One is providers, second was insurance and payers, followed by sponsors. So these are the three different steps. So the first step will be called as eligibility verification, because whenever a patient has joined for a hospital where they have to see whether a person has valid insurance or not, right? So that they have to see. So this is what we call it as eligibility verification, eligibility inquiry. So do they have valid insurance with him or not, right? With him or her or not, right? So this is what eligibility verification which has to be done. So normally this process will be done by the providers to an insurance as well as payers, whereas eligibility will be cross-checked. So eligibility request will be sent to by the providers to an insurance as well as the payers, means insurance companies. So which this eligibility inquiry, the kind of code number what is that we use is 270. 270 is the code number we use for enrollment or for eligibility verification purpose. So once the eligibility inquiry was sent through 270 code, whatever the response will be given by an insurance organizations to the providers, response will be mentioned on the code number called 271, because even in the beginning itself, I have told you, whatever the request you have sent, the code number is different. And whatever we receive, the code number might be different. So there are two differences you see. So eligibility inquiry 270 is the code we use. Whereas when it comes to the response, what is that you receive from an insurance payers to the providers will be of 271. Next. So once the verification process is done, yeah, so yes, you need to remember the codes. Yes, you need to remember the code. Yes. So there are few codes, which whatever the codes I may be explaining to you. So those codes remembrance is required. So of course you don't see more codes here, right? Not more than below than 10, right? So these codes are important. So this code can be remembered easily, not an issue. It's not a big deal, right? So eligibility inquiry request will be sent on 270, and whatever the response you are getting from an insurance company to the providers will be used as a code number of 271. So inquiry 270, response from the insurance payer to a provider is 271. Now, the second step is that pre-treatment authorization and reference. And whatever the pre-treatment authorization referrals followed by adjudication, whatever the adjudication in reference to the authorization and reference I'm talking about. Adjudication, not in terms of the claim status inquiry, because we haven't received till claim status inquiry so far, right? Claim status and all everything will be done later. So first is eligibility inquiry will be done. Next, followed by this pre-treatment authorization and reference, and whatever the healthcare services delivery related stuff. So that information to cross check with from an insurance payers for pre-certification and adjudication and all, the kind of code number, either from provider to an insurance organization or from insurance organizations to a provider. The code number, what is that we use, will be called as 278. Please do remember 270 for eligibility inquiry Of course, this screenshot will be sent to you in Word document so that you can go through that. No problem. You don't need to write. I'll be forwarding in Word document to you finally. So, but still, if you want, you can write. So 270 is an inquiry. 271 is a response. Healthcare services delivery happens between two different parties, either from providers to insurance company or from insurance company to the providers. It will be of 278. Next, whatever the service billing claim submissions from a healthcare provider to an insurance company for claims acceptance, whatever the documents and whatever the process they follow, whatever the code they will be using, will be called as 837. This is a claim. This is a claim number. 837 will be used here. So this is for service billing as well as for the claim submissions. Means healthcare provider has sent a request about the kind of billing, whatever the bill happened. So for that bill submission request to be raised. So whatever the request sent to the insurance company for the purpose of acceptance of the claim. So the claim number will be called as 837, right? So this is the claim number which will be taken here, right? So 837 is the claim number. Now, once the claim submission done, there is verification and validation process will be taken care of by the insurance organizations. So once the verification and validation process happens, if any kind of status, if a provider wants to know, maybe usually after 30 days or so, there will be a claim status inquiry, 30 days to 45 days sometimes, below that even. So it depends on the process which and how much it will be taken. So there is a claim status inquiry will be sent. Status inquiry will be asked by the provider to an insurance company. For that, 276 is what the code number, what is that we are using. So provider to insurance company, claim status inquiry number is called 276. So against to the request or inquiry, whatever that done by the provider 276, whatever the response given under the claim status response will falls under 277. So 276 for claim status inquiry, 277 for claim status response. So whatever the number are we using, 270 to 271 were for eligibility verifications. Healthcare services deliveries 278. Claim status inquiry, claim status response, whatever your edit response you are receiving, all these will be falls under 276, 277 response respectively. Now for claim submissions 837, right? So most code numbers, whatever you are supposed to remember were 270, 271 to 837. So these are the major code numbers which you have to use it, because these are the code numbers are used for the claim processing, all that. Remaining procedure codes, diagnosis codes, all these things will be used by the healthcare organizations, not by the BA. Because healthcare organizations, when they are processing their claims, whatever the procedure they have followed, whatever the procedure, because procedure codes, diagnosis codes will be there, they use the code numbers for to enter the details. So it is nothing to do with the role of a business analyst, right? So that's the reason why there are, if that was the case, there are few more codes which are involved in it. So that is not required. So that is not needed. But for the claim related stuff, yes, this is the information which is really required for us to understand. So claim status inquiry 277, and whatever the response you are getting from an insurance organizations to a provider in reference to the response and all everything will falls under 277. So 276 inquiry, 277 response. Now, whatever the claim payments, settlements happens, all these things happens under 835. So 837 for claim request, payments, receivables, claim payments and all everything. That will be falls under 835. Now, for example, there is a one more activity which normally we have to see, for example, for enrollment. Right, for example, there was no enrollment was done so far, right? So whatever the transactions I have explained you so far about the eligibility verification, right? So healthcare services related stuff, claim processing, request adjudication, and final claim settlement, right? So these are the steps we have taken. But whereas initially, if you see, there is some enrollment happened, right? So assume that there was no enrollment happened for so, because there are three people as I mentioned, three people are involved in. One is healthcare providers is the first one. Second, insurance companies and the payers are the second party. The third party were sponsors, right? So sponsors and all that. So this enrollment process from an insurance organizations to a sponsor will be 834. Normally, these sponsors may be in organizations where an employee is working. For example, an employee is working for an organizations where organization will sponsor the insurance, right? Some amount of money will be paid by, depends on their company policy, rules and regulations. Some amount will be paid by the employee and some amount will be paid by the percentage of amount will be paid by the employer, right? So there is a calculation which is involved in it. So when in terms of the enrollment procedure, what is that we have followed in the beginning? So if whatever the transactions and whatever the enrollment procedure will be followed from an insurance organization to the sponsor is 834. So please remember 834 will be used for the enrollment, right? So whereas claim payments will be done on 835. So enrollment, claim payments, two different things. Enrollment for 834, claim payments and all everything happens through 835. So claim request 837. Status inquiry 277, 276. Inquiry followed by responses. Eligibility inquiry 270, 271. Right? So these are the things. These are easy for you to understand. Maybe now you may feel difficulty to understand, but once you recheck all that, so that anyway you will be knowing it, right? So 834 for enrollment will be done, and whatever the payment order received from a sponsor to an insurance organization will be of 820. So these are the claim codes which being anyone, especially BA, because as in when we are involving in the healthcare process, especially in reference to the claims. So these are the code numbers which you need to remember. So the major codes are these. So the first code is, as I mentioned you, inquiry for 270, you must be knowing. 271 response, whatever you have received. So this enrollment process again from an insurance company to a payment into a sponsor and all falls under 834 for enrollment, and whatever the payment order received from a sponsor to an insurance company will be 820. So you can classify for a easy understanding. What is that I can suggest you is eligibility enrollments. You discuss, you read or you understand yourself in three different ways. One is eligibility verification and enrollment. Think from one level. Second, pre-authorization referrals. At the same time, whatever the pre-certification adjudication process and all, take it into the second level. Whatever the claim related service billing and status inquiries receivables, you take it into the third level, so that you can understand this more better. Rather than this, the best way of understanding this is this. So eligibility inquiries, enrollments, you think you understand in one context. Second, pre-treatment authorization reference, second level. Third, claim related information. Either it may be a submission, or it may be an inquiry, or it may be a response, status response, whatever you have received, or else whatever the claim payments, all these things can comes under this 837, 835, 276, 277, all that. So this is the whole process which the code numbers will be used for claim life cycle, which normally happens once the treatment done for the patient. Once the treatment has been done, whatever the procedure to be follow will be falls under this. So this is the whole structure about claim processing life cycle, all that. Now here are some questions where I would like to know. Um, okay. Yeah. So the right. See here, the question was from Dinesh. How is the code determined by the law? See, code numbers are used to encrypt the data. So protection of data will be taken, protection of health information through a procedure called code numbers and all everything will be governed by HIPAA law. So HIPAA law is protecting the information, because if there is any violation has taken place, in order to not to happen that violation and all, what steps to be taken by in insurance organizations or the healthcare providers. So to determine that, there is a law which was imposed called HIPAA, right? So through that HIPAA instructions and all, whatever the code numbers are we using for verification or for validation or for claim processing steps and all, everything happens through these code numbers. So there is through different distinction between these two, which you should understand. Understood, Dinesh? I think this is for your question, whatever you asked. Right. So the next question from Anshika, how will I use these codes as BA? Business analyst remembrance, because business analyst is a part of healthcare provider, and when we are gathering the requirements, for example, the claim processing system is there, right? So for example, you want to change any requirements, let's say, that's what I have told in even couple of times earlier. So there was no process for COVID treatment earlier was done. Due to the COVID, there are some changes happens in the acceptance levels, all that. So who has to change the requirements and all here? So that is that business analyst has to do it. So business analyst doesn't mean that business analyst is involving in the claim processing or business analyst is doing the code. But when we're trying to understand the requirements in the process of it, there are some terminologies and the code numbers, whatever are we using for processing the claims and all everything, should be known to the business analyst for a better understanding. If you understand from that grounds, you could understand why these code numbers are required for a BA to understand it. I think it clarified to you, Anshika. Yeah, so the code numbers remain constant for everyone, because code numbers never changes, because these are the code numbers which all the people has to be followed, right? So because even it's the procedure codes or diagnosis codes or claim related codes, everything will be followed by the same codes by other organizations. Because see, for example, healthcare provider may be a different person, but insurance company may be the same, right? For example, there is a Medicare policy. So healthcare provider may be different people, but where they are sending the request or the responses, whatever they wants to receive from an insurance company remains same and constant, right? What is the difference? Maybe the cost of the service may have the variation. Even procedures almost the same, right? So for example, for something, for X is a problem, the treatment what and healthcare providers provide almost one the same, right? So you don't see any difference majorly in it, because procedure is a procedure everywhere. So when there is a procedure they follow, the code numbers, whatever they follow, will also be the same. So healthcare provider, the name of the healthcare provider might be changed, but the procedure as well as steps to be taken into an account will remains constant and same everywhere. Hence, code numbers will also be the same as it is. Hope you understood. Yeah, just to verify, sponsor refers to the employers. They have to verify whether the proper enrollment was done or not. So now you're talking about 278. 278 is a code which is used for healthcare services delivery. Means whatever the healthcare services they are providing, whatever the information, to know about those information and all everything. So we were talking about 278. So this is a general inquiry we'll be making for healthcare services, because before you are going for a claim, whatever the healthcare services information to be delivered or to be mentioned. So for that 278 code is being used. That is not relating to the claim. It is nothing to do with claim. Claims will comes later, because eligibility has to be done. Healthcare services delivery means whatever the services they have given in the hospital to the patient, right? So all these case sheets, discharge related stuff, all these falls under 278. Claims request will be comes under 837 and all. That's all. Krishmi. Providers means healthcare providers means hospitals. Like in a simple note, I can say healthcare providers. Healthcare provider or the hospital, insurance company, insurance organizations. Yeah, main codes are these, Nandita, whatever the codes I was mentioning here. So these are the codes which normally you guys have to remember and memorize. So if you see once, twice, you will be knowing it. So it is doesn't have any much difficulty, because these are the standard codes if you remember. So these are important, because when you go for an interview or somewhere, right? So there may be a possibility. Forget about when you're while you're working, right? So at least to start with, if someone may ask you like what kind of code you have used for claim status inquiry, right? So at least to explain with these code numbers are useful to you. That was the point. 278 already explained. I think you understood. Krishmi. So services, whatever the services in healthcare organization has provided to a particular case or to the particular patient, to provide that information falls under 278, right? So what are the treatment details? In a simple note, I can say treatment details. Treatment details falls under 278. Treatment details. In to make it simple, I'm telling this, Krishmi. So there are encrypted formats are available. This is in reference to the question asked by Rajesh Tripathi, right? So EDI are the transactions. Code numbers will be provided there in an encrypted format, where because these are systems are involved in it, right? So different applications will be used. On that applications, these code numbers and all everything will be used, right? For the for status and all, directly you will be mentioning about 835. So 835 means 835 will be used for claim payment, right? So that's how usually it is. Because these we call it as EDI. We don't mention as EDI. EDI stands for electronic data interchanges. And the name itself it is that. So the code numbers is what we use it. So 834, as I mentioned you, is for enrollment, right? 835 for claim payment. There is a difference. No, actually, in reference to the project, what is that I take? I'll take some sample case study tomorrow. I'll showing it on Jira because BA related stuff I have already shown you, right? So business requirements, I have shown that to you. Tomorrow, next 2 3 days, what is that I do? I'll take some sample healthcare project, run something like healthcare management related stuff. For example, let me take, for example, if you take this, some healthcare related application I'll be taking, some case study or a project, whatever you name it is. Uh, 1 minute, I will show you. Right, for example, hospital management system software, or else it may be something, yeah, it may be something like patient management, or it may be this healthcare management software. So whatever it is, so I will be taking this case study and I will show it on Jira board because BRD documents and all I have shown. Now happening thing is agile on Jira. So how to write epics for this project and how to write user stories. So that part, right? So because user story writing, epic creation, user story writing, and maintaining product backlog. So these are the three activities in agile environment, be it and product owner, you will be performing. So this you need to know. So that scenario I'll be explaining on Jira using these applications. What are the applications I'm showing you? So those applications I'll be, that's this scenario I'll be giving, I'll be taking, and being a business analyst, how you are going to update this information on Jira board in reference to the, I'm talking about in reference to the agile environment. Let's say, for example, this one, right? Appointment and scheduling, OP managements. So how this to be updated for this epics and all, how the acceptance criteria for how the user stories will be written for all the functionalities. So these will be updated in the Jira board, but we don't see the claim systems on that because claim systems were the premium versions, right? So those are all not the paid free versions. Claim systems and all everything were are the paid versions like Facets, all that stuff. That is not possible. But on Jira, yes, the project sample project like this will be taken, and I will show you how to write user stories for all the epics and all, how to create product roadmap on Jira. So that practicals will be shown. Yes, I will show that. See, it is nothing to do with, because medical coders will have a clear understanding about the coding part. So they'll write the code for the each and every claim. Code will be written by them. It is nothing to do with peer rule here. So you're not going to do it. Next, any questions on this? Yeah. So this is what it is. Right. So this is all about today. So tomorrow I'll be, this is what the project I'm taking, maybe hospital software system, something like this I'll be taking. So I will show it on Jira. So there is a Jira software as I stated earlier. So here is a Jira board. So Jira will be there. On Jira, how to create epics, how to write user stories. All these I'll be showing on the Jira board to you guys. Okay, this is how it is. It's a Jira software. So here you need to create a project. Of course, there are few projects which was created and it's going on now. Of course, those are ready-made. Ready-made means working now. As of now, we are working on it. So that let us not go into that. I will show you how to create a project and how to write. Yeah, this is Jira. Yes. So this is how generally the requirements we will be writing here. Being a product owner, first of all, you have to create a roadmap. So in this roadmap, you need to write down this epics, followed by epics, you have to write down the user stories. So all these, whatever you have written so far, everything will be uploaded in the backlog. So this is one more practicality which you need to learn. That's what we are doing from tomorrow onwards. Maybe taking 1 or 2 days stay or 3 days. As long as it takes, it will be completed based on that. Okay, this is how it is. So once the backlog we have created, sprint planning and all will be taken care of by the development team. That is their level. So in your level, you need to create this epics and user stories on Jira. This is what you need to learn. So this is in comparing to the documents. What is that I have shown you as BRD, all that. So in traditional model, we prepare business requirements, all that, which I have shown you some time back in our session, if you remember. But whereas when it comes to Agile, in spite of preparing documents, in order to make it more simpler, we use Jira software for this. That is the difference. I hope you understood. Clear, everyone? Understood? Right. So tomorrow we will work on Jira. So you will have some practical exposure even here. See you then. Bye. I will show you, I will tell you everything. You don't require, because Jira is a cloud version. You don't need to download. You can register yourself in cloud account. As a cloud account, you have 30 days trial version, which can be used. That I'll show you tomorrow. Okay, bye.